I'm just going to wait for the notifications to come in so I know that we're truly live everywhere.
Okay. Sounds good. I will just chill over here.
Okay, we're live on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. This is NR. And on the Fireside Chat with me today, I have Danielle, who's a former recruiter, now career coach. She's going to be sharing some tips and secrets with us. So if you can see us or hear us, let us know in the comments. Let us know where you're joining us from. Hi, Abdel from North Carolina. How are you doing? We're in North Carolina. I've been to Charlotte anyways. Thanks for joining us, Abdel. If you are joining us from Facebook, you'd have to sign in to StreamYard so that we can see your name. That's the only way we can see your name. But hello from whoever is joining us from Facebook. So I have here with me Danielle. Danielle is a recruiter and now a career coach. She's been doing this for 4 years now. And she's going to be, sharing some industry tips and secrets with us. People who are career professionals, people who trying to get ahead and need guidance in regards to applying for jobs. I'm trying to network. I'm doing so many things. Why is it not working? Right? Fantastic. We're live on YouTube. All right. So I'm going to allow Danielle introduce herself and tell us a bit about her.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Anna, first of all. Am I coming through okay, volume-wise? Okay, cool. So a little bit about me. As Anna was saying, I have been doing career coaching and resume writing for about 4 years. I have also been recruiting for about 6 years on a contract basis. I was corporate for a couple years, and now I am freelance, and it's part of my consultancy. So the industries that I have worked in, I started out in IT, and then I've done a little bit of healthcare, I've done a little bit of finance, I've done some nonprofit, honestly, even startups. There's almost nothing I haven't touched at this point in time. So I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades. Hopefully that's to your guys' benefit today. So I guess I'm curious, how many people do we have who are on the market looking for jobs right now? Hopefully everybody.
If you're looking for a job, put a comment. Let's know.
Yes.
What kind of role are you looking for? What industry? Let us know.
That'd be great. So that's a little bit about me. So I'll turn it back over to you. I'll let you drive us here.
Okay, fantastic. Now, let's talk about job search. The job search as a whole. I find with a lot of people, the only thing that they do with job search. So Edward is searching. What kind of role are you searching for, Edward? I find with job search, a lot of people just focus on applying, right? Applying online, getting rejections, and that's really the only thing they're doing. So let's talk about the job search process, right? What is the right way to to get a job, to find a job? What's the right way?
All right. Well, I'm so glad you asked. And I couldn't agree more with pretty much everything you said. So, I mean, first of all, let's just acknowledge the current times that we're in. I think COVID has created a really interesting situation where the upside is that there are more opportunities than ever because remote is an option that's been opened up for so many more companies across so many industries and verticals, and there's just a lot more opportunity. But along with that, everything is more competitive because everything is open to remote. So that's just a really interesting ecosystem to deal with in the first place. And I think that it really creates a need to be more competitive than ever. And so when it comes to applying, I don't think that that's a bad thing. So first of all, I'm going to say I don't think applying is bad, but there is. I mean, not all applying processes are equal. So there is like a better and a worse way to apply. So because, I mean, since if most of us are applying, we kind of feel like that's one of the main options available to us, right? Like we probably don't feel like we have a ton of high value connections because if we did, so if we're applying, most of us are like, all right, well, even if there's some other things that we can do, I know, which there definitely are, but I still think you might as well fire on all cylinders, right? You're probably still going to apply, and that's fine, but there's a way to do it. So I do want to quickly address with a resume, because one of my core skills as a former recruiter and now with my current business is as a resume writer. And so there are a lot of rules out there that honestly really they hold across every single industry. They do not change. They're the same, and everybody is screwing them up, you guys. So, and you're probably doing it too. So you need to know what they are. One of the first rules to a resume, Number one, it needs to be highly scannable, okay? Because recruiters and hiring managers are not reading your resume. When they're looking at it. They're literally scanning it for a maximum of 3 seconds. What does that mean? It means it can't be too busy. It means it needs to appropriately use white space. It means break up the text. You don't want a giant block of text on your resume. Nobody can scan that. There need to be different headings. You need to call attention to particular items of relevance. You need to make sure that your achievements are listed right up front and center so that people can immediately see, why am I going to call this person right now? Because there's the yes pile, the maybe pile, and the no pile. And the maybe pile and the no pile are the same, okay? So a recruiter and a hiring manager is going to scan your resume for 3 seconds, and they're going to decide which pile am I going to put this piece of paper into that's it's in competition with 200 other pieces of paper, okay, on average across every job. And the yes pile is, I'm going to call this person right now. I got to call him because I want to hire him. And the maybe pile is, I can't tell if I want to call this person. Maybe they're a good candidate. Maybe they're not. I don't know. It's not clear from the resume. I don't know if I want to call this person or not. And that's probably 85% of all people who are applying to jobs. And let me tell you guys something. The maybe pile becomes the no pile, okay? Because recruiters are really, 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 really busy. We're handling up to 40 open recs at the same time. COVID has made that even worse. Recruiters are busier than they've been before because they got all these remote roles that they have to deal with. And so what happens is, while you are... excuse me, you're sitting in the maybe pile, okay? And the recruiter doesn't know if they want to call you or not. The hiring manager doesn't know if they want to call you or not. And they work through the yes pile that they're like, I got to talk to this person right now and schedule an interview. And by the time they get back around to the maybe pile, they've already hired somebody in the yes pile. So the maybe pile becomes a no pile. So you have to make sure that you get in the yes pile right away. And one of the ways that you do that is by having a highly scannable resume. It's got to be immediate visual impact that I got to call this person. It's got to be impressive, okay? Number 2 rule, it's got to be impressive. That means metrics and outcomes. If not numbers, then outcomes. You got to find a way to quantify yourself. You've got to find a way to quantify your achievements. If you don't know how to do that, I do. That's what I do. So talk to you've got to find a way to quantify yourself and your achievements and what makes you special. The other thing that it has to do, the 3rd rule, okay? This is one of the most important rules. I love this. This is so fun. I can do this all day. Anyway, it's got to be, a good resume has got to be selective, strategic, and relevant, okay? A recruiter does not want to look at a resume that, like, this is another question. I just realized that a lot of people don't know, like, if they're qualified for a job or not when they have I don't know if you guys have ever been like, I don't know if I'm qualified for this, but a recruiter does not want to look at a resume that is irrelevant. What does this mean? A lot of people think that a resume is a work history. And if you're one of those people, I have good news for you. You need to fix that wrong thinking. It is not a work history. A resume is a piece of marketing. Its job is to get you an opening to an interview. That means that you need to strategically select out the most relevant parts of your experience. Don't go back to 1996. Seriously, you never want to be, no matter who you are, unless you're a physician, unless you're a postdoc, unless you're a PhD student and you are applying for an academic role. You never want a resume over 2 pages. That one page resume rule, throw that out. Hiring managers don't care about that unless you are an intern or something. But otherwise, never longer than 2 pages. Nobody cares about the 1-page rule. It's more about what's on it. It's more about, is it highly scannable? Is it impressive? And is it relevant? Okay. And again, what do I mean by that? Make sure that you put the most relevant stuff first. What matters on a resume? Everything. What matters on the order? Everything. The most relevant thing needs to be first, because keep in mind, we're in a hyper-competitive environment. Hiring managers and recruiters scan your resume for 3 seconds. They are not reading your resume. They are probably not reading past the 2nd line. If you don't give them something about you that's impressive, relevant, and quantified in the first couple of lines of a resume, they're not going to read past that. A good resume has to capture attention right away. So make sure you put the most relevant stuff first. So that's some information about a good resume. The other big mistake that people make when they apply, because remember, applying is not bad, but applying in the wrong way is bad, okay? So the big mistake that a lot of other people make when they apply is they don't apply enough. Especially in a competitive environment, how much do you need to apply? The answer is always more than you think. The quantified answer is, I'm going to give you guys some measurables, because I'm all about measurables. So if you are entry level, and you want to get a job, you know what happens to me all the time? I get people who come to me and say, I need a job tomorrow. I really need to get a job, Danielle. And then I'm like, okay, well, how many applications have you put out in the past month? And you know what they say? Almost all the time, less than 10. And I go, you don't need a job. You don't care if you get a job or not. You don't care if you get a job next year. You don't care if you ever get a job. Because if you did care, this is where you need to be in terms of the numbers that you put out application-wise, the volume that you put out. This has never been more true than right now because of the competitive environment that we're in, even though there are more opportunities. If you are entry level, this is on a monthly basis. These are Danielle figures, but this is like, if you are trying to get a job, you should listen to this, okay? So if you're entry level, you need to be putting out at least 100 applications a month, at least. It's never been easier. Go on Indeed, apply, just click, 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 once you get your resume up there, right? You need to be putting out at least 100 applications a month. Off of those 100 applications, a good result is 40 calls or more. A good result off of that is 10 in-person, which now will probably be virtual, interviews or more. That's a good result if you are entry level. If you are mid-senior, you need to be putting out at least 50 applications a month, and you should hope to get from that at least 20 to 25 calls. That's a good result if you are mid-senior, and 10 interviews. Scheduled. I mean, they probably won't all happen within that month. Like, we can't control the timeline of, that companies work on, but we can control our timeline. So that's what I like to remind people of. If you are a senior level person, you should be applying to at least 40 applications a month. And you should expect to get, in a typical situation, COVID may impose delays. Who knows what's going to happen during election season. But in an ordinary environment, you should hope to get a good result off of that would be 20, 25 calls. And I would say around 10 calls you should still hope to get. And I would say 5+ interviews. Why are the numbers going down? Because they're probably going to be less, like, as you become more experienced, you become more specialized. There are less opportunities that are truly a good fit for you, but that makes you more relevant to those opportunities. So that's why the numbers are going down. When you are at the executive level, you should be applying to at least 20 applications a month, ideally, and you should get hopefully 5 to 10 calls from that, and hopefully at least 5 interviews. So those are the numbers that I suggest you looking at. So I don't want to, like I said, you're driving the ship here, Enno, so I'm going to let you ask some more questions, and I'm happy to speak to if you want me to keep going about, okay, what else can we do other than apply? But those are some tips that I have about, okay, most of us are probably still going to be applying, and that's not bad, but we need to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. So.
All right, fantastic. My next question, where am I echoing? Okay, so my next question would be, as a recruiter, when you look at a resume, right, what are some things that you quickly look out for? What are some things that are must-haves on the resume?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing is I'm looking to be wowed. Okay. You need to wow me. And if you are missing the wow factor, which just from a sheer statistic standpoint, I mean, how many of the resumes that I see wow me out of every 100 that I've ever seen for, any position, IT roles, healthcare roles, whatever, less than 10. Less than 10 wow me. So if you have any questions about whether or not your resume currently has that wow factor, it probably does not. So you need to fix that. And if you don't know how to fix that, you should talk to someone who does know how to fix that. And if you don't know anybody who knows how to fix that, then you should talk to me because I know how to fix it. So that's the first thing that I look for is the wow factor. The second thing that I look for is, and when I'm saying me, I'm going to extend me to hiring managers. Something that I know that hiring managers really look for, other than relevance, that's a given, I got to see that. And other than the wow factor is they really look for longevity a lot of the time, which is kind of a tough thing for some of us right now, especially maybe COVID has impacted the length that we expected to stay at a certain company. There are ways to strategically manage that information. Sometimes it's better to omit something that's really short if possible.
Yeah.
There are different things that you can do, but hiring managers are always looking at the length. They don't want what they call a grasshopper in a lot of ways. Usually if you're at a company for at least 2 years, that's okay. Longer is preferred, especially the more senior you get.
Yeah.
Too long can also be a problem, but it's less of a problem with most hiring managers than it is with the not, I guess. And then the other thing that they look for is gaps. Again, there's a way to strategically manage that. Sometimes it's better to omit certain things. If it happened a long time ago, but your recent job experience is pretty solid, then I wouldn't worry about it as much, because the other thing that hiring managers and recruiters tend to be really preoccupied with is the last 5 years, particularly the last 2 to 3. So make sure, because again, remember that the first things that they see on your resume is what matters most. Remember, you've got to make that impact right away. And so when you think about the wow factor, that's what has to be most impressive. So if you're like, well, a lot of my achievements that were really cool were within my early career, some way you have to deal with that. So those are some of the biggest things that, that they notice.
Fantastic. So, the wow factor on the resume, make sure your resume is strategic, focus on the things that the recruiters or hiring managers will see first. So make sure whatever is in the first half of the first half of that page 1 of your resume is spot on, it's measurable, their achievements are outcome driven. Something I say is I detest a task-driven resume where, I made copies or I wrote documentation. Like, really, that's not what makes you unique. That's not what makes you stand out. I mean, everyone uses Microsoft Office today. So, we don't want to know how many, documents you typed or you wrote, how many copies you made every day. We want to see your achievements. That's the wow factor we're talking about here.
Yes, your resume needs to show that you understand the impact of your role. It needs to show that you understand the value of what you do in your job. What are you creating for the company? What dollars are you bringing in? What
value
deliverables are you delivering? What objectives are you exceeding? What objectives are you fulfilling? The goals that if you're confused about it, think about, how do I know if I'm doing a good job or not in my job? What is my boss always talking about? What are they fixated on? What are their priorities? What are they always seeming to be wishing that we could do better on? And that tells you right there, okay, that's my value. So absolutely spot on, Emma. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Now, aside from applying online, what are some other strategies that job seekers can employ to to help them get that job? So now that they know how to get their resume done right, what next?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you asked again, because there are definitely other things that people can do aside from applying. And I mean, I think we should probably all still be doing that. It's definitely something we can have working for us in the background, but it's kind of passive. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like to leave outcomes to like chance. Like, it's just not really what I like to do. So I like to take the bull by the horns and make things happen. So I'm an impatient person. Maybe you guys are. But, you know, when you're looking for a job, like, it's all about maximizing your opportunities. And so I would say, aside from applying, which I would encourage everybody to remember, that when you're applying for a job, which you should still continue to do, but you're putting yourself in a line, basically, with a bunch of other people. And why would you want to be in a line if you could not be in a line? So it's, you know what, the thing about it that's tough is that everybody, in a way, like, I think kind of knows that there are other things that you can do. It's more work. There's no way around it. It's more work to do the other things. You know, you can sit there on LinkedIn or Indeed, Easy Apply, and you can just apply with your resume, and you should do that because it's something you should do easily and it doesn't take much time. But you are putting yourself in a line. So there are other things you need to do where you're not putting yourself in a line. And usually what that means is, first of all, I would encourage all of you guys to think about what you have that's rare. What do you have where on a resume you could beat out a lot of people in terms of qualifications? If it's 10 years plus experience in one industry, that's always going to be attractive to that industry. It's rare in the sense that not everybody has that. If you have, you should think about the companies that you've worked for. Who are their competitors? Because every single company that you've worked for, you will be very, very, very desirable to their competitors. And whether or not they're looking for a job, whether or not they're posting jobs online, message people from the competitor companies on LinkedIn. Be friendly. Don't ask for a job, you know, but make a friendly introduction. Become a master of the cold message. Seriously, you need to invest the time to do that. If you don't want to invest the time to do that, then you can always just come talk to me because I have a bunch of templates that you can use. But if you would rather take the time, because you can absolutely figure it out, become a master of the cold message, the competitor companies of the companies that you've worked at. Other things, if you have unique industry skills, that is always something that you can leverage. If you have, gone to school anywhere, think about your alumni networks. Think about just like all of the groups of the people that you know, because the fastest way to get anything done is through connections. A lot of people don't realize how many connections they really do have. And so other than thinking about what you have that's rare, which is my number one suggestion. My number two suggestion is to remember all of the networks of what I would call connection pools that you have that you're probably forgetting about, including people that you went to school with, people you grew up with, past colleagues. What are they doing now? Reach out to them, say hi. Everyone is working from home, bored. We'd probably love to hear from you. Extended family, past sorority, fraternity, sports groups, people you played basketball with, people your kids play soccer with. Book clubs, mom groups, church groups, anything that you were a part of where you can just reach out to people again and connect and build connections. Those are all things that you can start. I mean, it's a little bit of a longer process, but the connections, once they're there, are the fastest way to get anything done. So nurture those networks, build them up. The third thing that people can do that I think they forget about a lot of the time, other than thinking about what you have that's rare, other than remembering your connection networks, is, just a second, I can't find this. Anyway, so you want to think about, I literally just blanked out, you guys, this is terrible. I'll probably remember that later.
Okay, for sure.
Two things for now, and I'll go ahead with your other question, and when I remember that, I'll just circle back.
Yeah, for sure. So, my next question was, how can we leverage recruiters in our job search process? So, there is all the popular recruitment and placement companies, and we see all these recruiters, on LinkedIn, putting out, I need 3 PAs, I need 4 accountants, know any developers in the Bay Area, reach out to me, that kind of thing. How can we leverage recruiters in our job search process? So we know that, recruiters have a goal. They're trying to place talents at companies, and that's really their goal. But how can we as job seekers leverage them in our job search process?
That's a great question. And I think if you're applying online, recruiters will find you, no doubt, but there are things that you can do to facilitate that. So if you have not, for example, updated your LinkedIn recently, once you have your resume in good shape, I would replicate a lot of those measurable things, the wow factor, the impressiveness on your LinkedIn, and then make sure that you toggle the switch open that says open to recruiters, for one thing. I think through applying, like I said, to online jobs, recruiters will find you because 98% of the time these days, they're the first people who are going to have eyes on your resume. They're the first to get past. And so you will find recruiters by applying to jobs. You will find recruiters by toggling that open to work switch. Actually, I don't think it's called that, but it's, what I'm talking about on your LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
Work, right. And then I think the other way is you can utilize hashtags. Like I've seen a lot of people utilizing LinkedIn hashtags open to work, changing their profile photo, so there are things that you can do to get that maximum visibility. But I would say, honestly, the most important thing is just by making sure that you have the relevance and the wow factor. Because if you have that, recruiters will be beating down your door. No joke. Like, I mean, recruiters are always looking to fill jobs, right? And so if you are someone who can get a job done and you're someone who can do really well, then trust me, the recruiter wants to talk to you. You just have to make sure that that's clear to them. So that's my biggest answer on that one.
All right. So Oyin has a question. She said, Danielle, do you recommend reaching out to hiring managers for roles you already applied for on LinkedIn to build your network, or ask for a referral for the job and subsequent opportunities?
Okay, that's a good question. I would say it depends on a couple of things. For me, I would say probably when you applied for that role. So, I mean, I do know people who've actually been hired by companies after like 5 times applying to a job over a course of a couple of years. And they've usually done some things to advance their experience over that period of time. Maybe picked up some more experience in a certain field, maybe picked up a certificate, maybe picked up a degree. But I do know people who have done that. And so absolutely keep trying, but I would also not flood their inbox like every week or anything like that. Make sure that when you're reapplying or reaching out again, that there's something that's different from last time. So reiterate your interest, but call attention to something that's changed about your status, to why you feel like, I picked up this certification. Would you be able to take 2 seconds to give me some feedback about whether or not this is something your organization would value, or something like that? And then, okay, so recommending reaching out to hiring managers for roles you already applied for, build your network, ask for referrals. Okay, so yeah, so that's the other half of that question. And as far as building your network and asking for referrals, here's the thing about that. I mean, if you have applied for a role on LinkedIn and you haven't gotten a call or an interview or been hired, and you're asking for a referral, I just don't see that working. Like, you don't even have a relationship with them. So how powerful is that referral going to be? I think when you're asking for referrals, which you should do from everyone who's in your corners, like, I think you should think about, who are my supporters? Like, who have I done work for in the past who's been really impressed with me? Who have I had really positive interactions with? And work from there, build your networks from there, ask for referrals from those sources, because that's what's going to grow like wildfire. You can ask the questions in these other scenarios, but it's probably going to be a lot of nothing happening.
Yeah. All right, fantastic.
I don't know if that answers the question or not, or if you have tag questions or whatever. So
yeah. So Satya was saying, any thoughts on transferable skills when you're building out your resume?
Yes. thank you, Satya. Yes, this is a great question. I'm so glad you asked this question because everyone wants to know the answer to this, and it's probably not the answer that everyone wants to hear, but it's definitely the answer that you need to hear. So everybody needs to listen up right now. Transferable skills. This is one of candidates' favorite phrases in the world, and it's one of recruiters' least favorite phrases in the world because you have them. Like, I get it, and I agree with you. As a career coach, you absolutely have transferable skills. However, remember that relevant piece on the resume. The recruiter or the hiring manager needs to very clearly see that your experience is relevant. You guys listen up right now. If you need to send a cover letter along with your resume explaining why you are a good candidate, forget about it. Your resume in of itself needs to clearly paint a picture of your relevance and why you would be a great candidate in a role. No matter what your experience is, and even if you're trying to make a career change, which is admittedly one of the most challenging things to do just on a piece of paper, there's sometimes a way to do it. It can sometimes be managed. It really depends on the specifics. But generally speaking, there's always different ways to translate your experience. Oh, I knew I would remember.
You remembered.
This takes me back to where I was trying to go before, and it didn't happen, but it'll happen now. So one of the other things that you can do, aside from applying, is, this is sort of another way of applying, but it's also sort of not. Usually people have different houses, I'll call them, of experience. When you think about, so for instance, an administrative manager who's also done some HR functions. They could be an HR coordinator, they could be an office manager, they could be lots of different things. And so don't limit yourself. Think about all of your skills. And what I like to do is just kind of create a little tree. Like, I could take this here, I could take this here, I could take this here, right? And so what you actually want to do is you want to build separate resumes for each of those directions. And then you just want to lead with all of them and see who calls you, who interviews you, how are you being perceived by recruiters and hiring managers in a way that they want to act. So it's kind of a complex answer to that question. But transferable skills, the way to manage transferable skills is that you actually don't want it to be obvious to recruiters and hiring managers that you're trying to transfer anything. You just want to show them the direction because that's what they need to see. So
yeah. So if you've had buckets of experiences, and which is what a lot of people have had, admin and HR and say some finance as well, it's okay to be able to extract those activities, those roles, and have them on a resume. And when you're looking for, say you want to move into HR, you can extract all your HR experience and skills and have that on a good resume for a HR executive is what you're saying.
And not only is it okay, it's definitely to your advantage. It's a huge advantage to have many buckets of experience, as Eno is saying. You just want to present that in such a way that it's relevant to this direction. I'm not transferring anything. It's just, it's there, put it in front of them. If you guys have more specific questions about how to transfer certain skills, or this is my experience and I kind of want to do this, is there a way for me to do it on a resume? Do I have to get a degree? Do I have to do that? Those are probably specific questions that could best be addressed by a career coach like Eno or someone like myself, because those are very specific. But in general, you don't want them to know that you're transferring.
Yeah. And that's why your resume has to be strategic, and it has to be, you need to have that wow factor. You need to be able to, focus on achievements, focus less on, the task that you carried out, but the achievement, what makes you stand out is really what matters. I've seen people who have transferred into, business analysis and project management and IT, and, they didn't exactly always have a career in that space, but they were able to, extract the things that they did and,
speak to that direction.
Speak to that direction is basically what you want to do. I find a lot of people, who have a lot of experience, so mid to senior, they don't want to drop all the old things that they did in their early years. They want to put everything on their resume. But you don't exactly have to put everything. Focus on what's relevant, really. On the first page, what do we see that's relevant? And that's really your most recent experience. your most recent achievements, and accomplishments. That's really what's most important.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I mean by so many people want to approach a resume like their work history. And yes, they want to put everything they've ever done on there. And like, I get it, you guys. You want credit for the things that you've done. I get it. But a resume just that loses people in the details. It's too busy. It's too much. Remember, that's not what a good resume is. A good resume needs to focus on what's going to be most relevant about your achievements. Pick like 3 of the most relevant and feature them instead of listing everything you've done.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you for that. So there's something that you typically speak about, which is unlocking your brand, right? So your personal brand. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because that's also something that you do, is that you help people to, unlock their brand, which is more like their uniqueness. So can you tell us a bit about that personal branding?
Absolutely. So, another great question that I wish more people asked me. I think that has everything to do with understanding your unique value, which in the first place, you need to understand what is the value that I add to my team, what is the value that I add to my organization. Remember, when you think about that, think about what your boss is always harping on. Think about your performance reviews. Think about the things that are measured in your role. But I think that also shows an awareness of, what do I have that's rare? It all comes back to that. It really does. What do I have that's rare in my field? What do I have that's rare in comparison to other resumes? In companies like mine, what can not everybody say? And if you don't know the answer to that question, then you should definitely be talking to a professional like a professional like myself, because we specialize in helping people understand what they have that is special and rare. And I think the thing is, we really know, because we work with people like you guys all the time. And so, like, I'll tell you for now, for instance, for my clients, I can talk to somebody for 5 minutes and I immediately know what they do really well. I'm sure you can say the same, especially when it comes to your specific scope of experience, because you worked extensively within IT, work with BAs. And so you probably have such an intuition about, when you start to talk to someone in your field, you have that sense because you've talked to 500 of them in the past, 2 weeks. And so you're like, you start talking to a project manager and you're like, wow, you meet the deadline early every time, under budget, don't you? And you just know. Or, you're talking to an administrative assistant, you're probably like, you probably digitized all of the processes that were paper-based, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, how do you know? And I'm like, because I know, that's what I do.
And people forget these things are actually things that are worth being on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. People undermine the things that they did because they thought they were just things that were normal, but they're not normal.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually one of the highest value things about talking to a career professional like Anna, like me, other people who do what we do, because, and I can't even tell you how many of my resume clients have said this to me, and they'll say, I just struggle with articulating myself on paper. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that. And you know what? If you struggle to articulate yourself on paper, you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, all right, I'm working on my resume and I've been working on it for 10 hours. And I'm still working on it and I still don't know if it's very good, but it's easy to talk. And so when you're talking to an experienced career professional, like I said, who's been talking to 500 people like you, like Anna, like me, over the past couple of months, we know the questions to ask you guys to pull out, those things that you're not even thinking about, that you do all the time and you don't see it anymore because you're so used to it, and you don't realize that it's very high value. You don't realize that you should be highlighting that. Maybe you're not thinking about ways to quantify it. Like, I can sit there and I can be working with, and I'm sure you're thinking of examples too, I know, but I mean, I'll be working with a project manager and I'll say, okay, well, what was your deadline? And, well, when did you meet it? And I'm like, that was 2 months ahead of time. Like, and they'll be like, oh yeah, it was 2 months ahead of time. And they would never have thought to, say that. So I think that's one of the highest value things about working with us is that, like how when you're in a room and you've been cooking, you don't smell it anymore.
Yeah, so true.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. You're probably just kind of blind to your own talent and your own achievements and your own value. And it could be really helpful to get some outside perspective from somebody who understands your field. So you can really articulate yourself in a message on paper in an interview, relevant.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So Nonkosti has a question. She says, "Hi Danielle, how do I transfer my skills as an accountant to a business analyst when my current position is accountant?"
Okay, yeah, and that's a very specific question. It might be a better question for Anna because she is very specialized as a BA. So I'll kind of give my 2 cents and then I'll let her speak to this too, since that's her area. But what I would say is the first thing that I would do is I would go online. I would look at several jobs that are out in your area on Indeed or something like this for a business analyst, and I would see like the language that they use, what key terms do they repeat, and then I would think about my experience as an accountant. Even if it's not in a very clear-cut way, like I would think, I know for instance, real quick, as a business analyst, you're the expert on that, not me, but something you do that's kind of high priority is like you gather requirements, right? And you might like write use cases or like tests or something like that. It probably requires some detail orientation, but that's not specific enough. That's pretty soft. And so I would think about, okay, these are the things that I know that they prioritize as a business analyst, the direction that I want to go in. What requirements have I dealt with as an accountant? What requirements are subject to me? I would think about things like, what is a use case and how might that apply to my current experience? I would make every connection possible and really dig into like what the thing is, you know. But I want to give you a chance to answer that because you're the BA expert.
All right. So Nonkosi, I would ask you, you know, in your years working as an accountant, have you been involved in any initiatives, any projects in your organization, right? And you know, in those projects, what did you do? Were you like a subject matter expert in helping the organization? So, for example, say the financial software that you use right now in your organization, were you part of the team that helped to implement it, to upgrade it? The processes that are being used in your accounting team, in your accounting department, have you been involved in improving the processes, sort of re-engineering it? Have you been involved in automating a manual process, moving from paper to using systems? You've been involved in things like that that have in turn helped the organization to you know, save costs, you know, improve productivity, you know, increase revenue. That a lot of those activities are business analysis activities. So you need to be able to, just like Danielle said, extract those things that you've done and find a way to curate a good resume or profile that stands out in regards to the accomplishments that you have that relate to the tasks of a business analyst. So if you're involved in helping the organization define their needs, if you're helping collaborate with stakeholders, get their requirements, document them, that's also business analysis. So for a business analyst, you don't need to have had the title of business analyst to actually function in that role. Yes. So the fact that you've been working as an accountant doesn't mean you can't still work as a business analyst. You need to be able to extract those business analysis activities you've carried out and you know, go on from there. So I hope that helps you, Nonkosi. So just like Tina said, she said focus on the skill sets you have in, you know, redefining processes and, you know, all the other things that I've shared. So she says I was a power user in implementing our new SAP and improving the processes. So yes, those are actually your BA activities. And if you drill down, you know, you did way more than that. So you know, check out my profile. I have a class I typically do for people who want to understand what business analysis is all about. And I break it down and show you the things that you've probably done that you didn't know are business analysis skill sets that you can actually use to make that transition into business analysis. So I used to be an accountant on Kosi, and I'm moving to business analysis. So just like you, I was involved in projects. I was always involved in projects, right? And those were the things that, you know, gave me the confidence that I can actually do this. So, Nkosi, you definitely can. Thank you. So Simi has a question. She says, would you need to change your job title to fit the role? For instance, an accountant switching to business analyst.
Yeah. So I think that's a great question too, because sometimes I think the answer to this question is yes, and sometimes I
Yeah.
think the answer to this question is no. So I think in this case, like, so for business analyst to accountancy, I think that's different enough that I would not change the title, but like Anna was saying, I would really focus on speaking to the functions that I performed in that role that really speak to the functions of the other role. So that's what I would do. But there are cases in which, and I'm so glad you mentioned this. Thank you. I'm so sorry, I'm going to butcher your name, but thank you for asking this question, because it brings out another really important point, which is that even though a lot of us are hoping to not have to put ourselves in line and we want to utilize the other options, we're probably still going to continue to apply to jobs. And if you're going to take the time to apply, it really is worth it, especially in this competitive environment, to take 5 to 10 extra minutes and tailor your resume a little more to the keywords on the resume. If it's something similar, like if you are I realize probably a lot of you guys knowing Enno's audience are probably BAs. So I don't know if this will apply to you or not. I'm not as much of an expert on the BA space specifically as Enno is. But if you're going to do something similar, like for instance, if you have been an account manager and you're applying for some territory executive roles or something like that, where the title is similar but not the same, I would change it. Or I would there is the thing where you can like slash, and I do this all the time.
Or bracket,
slash or bracket. Exactly. I mean, I do things like that where I'm like office manager / HR administrator or something like that. So you're kind of covering both. And if it's an HR role, put that first, HR administrator / office manager, because remember, the order always matters. So yeah, I would say it depends on how similar it is as far as whether you should change the title. But for sure, always speak to the functions.
Fantastic. Now, Fumi B has a question. She says, how do you show value on a resume if you're wanting to transfer from technical sales to a business strategy manager role?
Great question. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing that you should be thinking about, number one, think about the titles. Business strategy manager. Well, that's probably going to let you know right away that the priorities are going to be on strategy, right? And so in your current role, what or how in any ways have you interacted with the strategies that you execute? If you execute the strategies, great. But what I would do is I would find a way to create some bullet points that speak to strategy. So supporting strategy and vision of senior leadership. I would say if you have partnered in any way on strategy formation, even if it's just weekly meetings and you have given your input. Because we can be artful about the way that we write bullets on resumes. We don't want to lie, but we can definitely be artful. And so I would say assist, senior management in developing or creating sales strategies, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, whatever ways that you can work in their involvement with the strategy piece, because the title tells you that that's probably pretty important. And then the other thing that you can probably find is business and management. So what business problems have you solved in your sales role? Speak to that. And then to what extent have you managed anything in your technical sales role? Maybe it's just managing client relationships. Maybe it's managing weekly sales activities. Maybe it's managing KPI execution. Maybe it's delegating certain aspects to junior members of your team or offshore members of your team so that you can perform against the KPIs more effectively. Whatever it is, business, strategy, management, speak to those three pieces in your functional experience in your technical sales role. That's what I would suggest.
Yay, thank you, Danielle. That was a great answer. I enjoyed that. I love that. Tina is asking, she said, I've heard it's about the keywords in the JD. Is that true?
When you say you've heard it's about the keywords in the JD, I'm not quite exactly sure what all that refers to, but what I like to do with the resume is I definitely like to, if it's a job that I'm really interested in, I mean, like I said, if you're going to apply, it's worth it to take an extra 5 to 10 minutes to tailor it a little bit more if you're really interested in the role. I mean, if you're just kind of giving yourself options, like whatever. But if it's something you're really interested in, I definitely would do it. I would tailor it further to the keywords in the JD. But this is something that's even more important in my opinion. You guys, this is a good tip too, and you really I love that I get the opportunity to share this right now. But something that I do that's a little bit of an insider trick when I'm applying to jobs, there are usually limits on when JDs are posted. And so usually it takes hiring managers a little while to get back to you for interview requests. Sometimes when you go back to look up the JD, it's no longer there. So when I'm applying for jobs, I like to create a little folder, October 2020 or whatever, and I will literally email myself all of the job descriptions for the jobs that I'm applying for on the day that I apply. And that's usually also how I track the dates of when I apply to jobs. And then if and when I get interview requests, I always, I absorb that JD, you guys. Absorb the JD for interview questions. When they ask cultural questions, what is your working style? Blah, 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 blah. Think about the terms that you read. Did you read things like collaborative? Did you read things like team player? Did you read things like go-getter, self-starter? Blah, 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 whatever it is, when you're kind of feeling like, what do they want to hear? Refer back to the JD. I think where that really comes in handy is in interview prep, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. So Tina was saying she has over 30 years of experience. How in different roles. So how do you, make everything relevant?
Yeah, first of all,
because she says it takes her more than 5 to 10 minutes to tailor her resume.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, that is an extreme asset to you. So that's amazing. That makes you rare. You have something that not a lot of people have. And so I think that the first thing you do, because like you said, you never want to be spending more than 5 to 10 minutes to tailor your resume. If you're spending longer than that, you don't have enough versions of it. Okay. So somebody like you, maybe you'll have 5 versions of your resume. I don't know, because you have all this different experience, and then you pull out the different pieces that speak to these different directions so that you never have to spend more than 5 to 10 minutes. And if it's not relevant, don't put it on there. And don't go back to 1996, probably. Probably no one ever wants to know what you were doing.
In the 90s, right?
You can save yourself a lot of time. I mean, unless you're applying to literally a CEO role or something, it's probably never a good thing to have 30 years of experience. I mean, all it does is allows people to age you. Which, we know that's not supposed to happen. And as you were 11, we know that's not supposed to happen, but protect yourself. Just eliminate the possibility that could happen to you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this question, and I don't know if you can answer it, if that's something that happens, or you've had clients who are new immigrants to maybe the US or Canada, and he's saying that it's often said that Canadian recruiters prioritize applications with, the local experience. What are your thoughts on this, and how do newcomers surmount this challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I can really authoritatively speak to that. However, I wouldn't be surprised by it. I really wouldn't, in that recruiters and hiring managers are human beings. And even though everything is supposed to be a fair process, everyone is more comfortable usually with what they know and what they're more familiar with. And that's just something human, and that transcends industries and all companies and all of that. But there are things that you can do. Obviously you can never control what you can't control, and so you're never going to be able to do that, but we can focus on what you can control. I would say several things. One of the best ways that you can work against that is just by giving yourself as many opportunities as possible. But also, there are companies who go out of their way to prioritize on diversity. Fortunately, we live in an era right now where, it's a very diversity forward social culture that we're embedded in right now. And so I think that's on your side more than it has ever been in the past. but I would do a couple of things. I would give myself the most opportunities possible. I would maybe gear myself toward nonprofit a little bit. I wouldn't limit myself to that, but nonprofit tends to be, in general, an industry that's a little bit more open to outsiders. So I might remember that. I might think about, like I said, companies that make a point of publicly taking a stance on diversity and inclusion. I might even do a little Google search, I don't know where you are, but 20 most diverse and inclusive companies in Alberta, in Quebec, wherever it is. And I would I would help those companies, and I would message managers on LinkedIn, become a master of the cold message.
Exactly.
And thank you for asking this question, because that reminds me of my other thing. A lot of people forget. And they don't have visibility of the companies around them. So I would remember, when you are messaging people on LinkedIn, which you can do in different ways, but I would literally, in order to generate as many options as possible for myself, if I live in Ohio, and so I might Google, and you can filter it by industry, 20 best healthcare companies to work for in Ohio, 20 best IT companies to work for in Ohio, 20 best biotech work for in Ohio. And I would just continue to generate these lists. So that's another way to build networks, to avoid putting yourself in a line. But anyway, yeah, I would maximize my opportunities. I would focus on companies that have made a stance on diversity and inclusion. And I would think about nonprofit, and any experience that you have in Canada, by the way, whether it's volunteer, whether it's whatever it is, and highlight that on your resume. Maybe put it first, because
exactly.
Here's my Canada experience.
Definitely put that first. And to be honest, a lot of people have gotten opportunities through volunteering. I have gotten opportunities because I was volunteering, right? So you want to make sure that, any opportunity you can to start volunteering, take it. And because that also helps to, give you that experience. So for me, some things you shared are so valid, because those are things I did. I Googled, best companies to work for, what are the top 50 companies to work for in Calgary, top 20 companies in 2018, doing my research, and then connecting with people in those companies on LinkedIn. The power of LinkedIn, is something that cannot be overemphasized, guys. You need to be using LinkedIn. Connect to people in these companies, start building relationships. Don't ask for a job, but build relationships, because you don't know when you will need them, right? People only refer to people that they know, they like, they trust. So build those relationships with people. Have informational interviews, have a 10-15 minute chat. Ask about, I know you work with ABC company. What's it like working there? What do they typically look for in a BA? What they typically look for in a project manager? This is my experience. What do you think? Do you think is relevant to your company? Do you think that I may have a chance if I apply to your company? You're asking questions, and you're getting to know more about the organization, and you're keeping up those relationships, because you never know when you'll need them, really. And just from that, that person, is in a meeting tomorrow, and someone says, "Oh yeah, we have a new opening for a project manager," and he thinks about it, "Oh, I had a chat with this guy. Let me go check if it's still open." These things happen all the time. So focus on building your network. I do not believe in, because I've heard, Canadian experience. Yeah, there are people and there are companies who would focus more on Canadian experience. That's a given. However, there are still companies that would apply new immigrants. So I wouldn't focus on the negatives. I'll focus on the positives and the things that I can do to set myself apart, really. I know as a new immigrant, I have to, go the extra mile. I have to do more, which is okay, which is fine. I have no problems with doing more, as long as I know that it's going to yield a result somehow. And focus on your experience. Focus on your experience. Use your accomplishments and your achievements to show value. That's what's key. And then, which brings me to my final question with you. What are your top tips for interviewing? Because I also find with a lot of people is they struggle with the interview process. So they're able to scale through and get an interview, and they still sort of bomb that interview. So what are your top tips for, scaling through interviews?
Yeah. So, I could talk about this subject for an hour, 2 hours, because there's so many things. need to be addressed. And so I really only have time for some high level advice on this one, but I think it's this, I'm going to give you like my top 3 again, like I'm just sitting here and no. So, I mean, these are really big things that you guys need to keep in mind and that I see person after person after person after person sort of mess up on. And number one, the thing that I see almost all of my clients do, almost all of my clients, you know, we've all been socialized and taught to give all of our information to companies, and they're very good at eliciting all the information from us. We've been socialized to feel like, you know, lying on your resume is bad. And it is, okay? Lying on your resume is bad. Lying in an interview is bad. However, companies do not give you all of their information when you are interviewing with them. They strategically present information to them, and you need to do the same thing. It does not necessarily help you at all to overshare details. It usually doesn't help you to overshare details. So you need to think when you are, and I can't recommend enough, you need to rehearse your answers to questions. You know, but when you are rehearsing your answers to questions, think about, okay, am I getting too in the weeds? Is it better for me to say less? Because a lot of the time it's better to say less. So that's my number 1 tip. Don't say too much if it doesn't help. My number two tip with interviews is think about what a hiring manager is likely to want to hear. In terms of what's the reason why you're leaving X company. Find a positive way to frame it. If you are struggling to do that, you really need to spend the time because that really matters. And my third tip, my third tip has everything to do with your tone of voice and your nonverbals, the way that you really need to come off in an interview. So you can say all the right things. And if you're not nonverbally sending the right signals, none of it will matter. The most important ones, you need to reflect confidence. You need to reflect competence and capability. And you need to seem enthusiastic, positive. You need to seem like you're not stressed out at all. You need to seem like you're taking a walk through the park. You're just you're in high demand. You're in high demand. So you don't need anything from this. You really need to send that signal, I don't need anything from you. So you want to come across like you're very easygoing. You're happy to let them get to know you. It is a privilege, okay? But you really need to send those signals of being confident, of being easygoing, of not being stressed out. And you really need to send those signals of really knowing your stuff. So I know it's very high level and you're probably like, but how? And that gets into, that's really detailed, you know, and there's a lot in there, but that's what it all comes back to. So listen to yourself when you're rehearsing your answers. Do I sound confident? Do I sound like I know what I'm talking about? Can I pull out concrete examples? That's the number one way to test. Do I know what I'm talking about or not?
Wow, fantastic.
And do I seem like I'm trying too hard here? There's like a parallel to dating, you know, are you trying too hard to impress this person? Don't do that. You need to send that signal of, I'm happy to give you my time, but I don't need anything here. So those are a few of my very high level interviews. Don't say too much. Don't say too much. Always be positive and send those nonverbal signals.
Yeah, fantastic. Those are very, very great tips. And these are things that I also share with people. So I totally resonate with that. You know, practice, rehearse. You need to practice for your interviews. Don't just show up there. Practice makes perfect, you know. Look at the job description. What are the keywords they have there? You know, and make sure you're speaking, you know, to the job description, speaking as that person they're looking to hire, right? You want to make sure that, you know, you're giving them relevant information. You're using concrete examples, right? If you're not giving them good examples, then then you're just faking it. You're not giving good examples, then you're not even confident in the work that you've done. And you're nonverbal. You should be smiling, happy, relaxed. Don't show any sign of pressure. Even if you've been searching for a job for 6 months, when you approach an interview with desperation, it shows off actually. So you want to make sure you're confident and you show your competence, you show your value based on the things you've done, and you're asking good questions as well throughout your interview. Make it very relaxed by asking them questions. Getting to know more about the organization shows your enthusiasm, shows your interest. And then, that would be a great interview experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. It's been fun having you here, Danielle. Oh my God, we've spent an hour.
I know.
But it's been great. And if you want to, hear more about what Danielle has to share, you can find Danielle on LinkedIn. And I'm going to talk about that. But also, she's also going to be in the Career Mastermind. So, she's going to be sharing some more. She has a lot of content, so much content that we definitely can't share in this short time. But if you want more access to Danielle and you want to learn more, you have more questions, and to be in a more intimate space with Danielle, then join our mastermind. Check out my profile, is under my featured posts. Danielle is one of the coaches that's going to be giving you more of the secrets. She won't share so many of the secrets right now, but in the mastermind, she's going to give you way much more. And then, of course, she has some awesome freebies for people who are in the mastermind, who would get a personal one-on-one session with her. So to wrap things up, I'll just let Danielle share a few words.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on. I know this has been super fun. I could do this all day. It's definitely been the most fun hour of my day so far. And thank you guys all for attending, and I hope you've had as much fun as we've been having. One tip that I want to leave you guys, because I'm feeling generous today. If you guys are feeling kind of overwhelmed, because Eno and I are very high energy and this is what we do, so we're really excited about it. You feel like, oh my gosh, these are all good ideas, and you're flying high for an hour after, and then you just crash and you're like, I just don't have energy to do any of this. A tip that I like to give a lot of my clients is, you don't have to do everything all at once. I like to handle the job search strategically. So what I would do is I would toss out a bunch of applications first to get that working for me in the background. But then, and I would set an hour. Okay, I'm going to apply to jobs for an hour, and I'm just going to get that working for me in the background. And then the next day, I'm just gonna designate another hour, an hour a day. I can do that, and I would message however many people on LinkedIn that I could message in an hour. And then for the next day, the next hour, if you want to make it the same hour every day and give yourself a routine, the next hour I might make some of those lists that Eno was talking about. Okay, 20 healthcare companies in my area that focus on diversity and inclusion, 20 IT companies in my area, 20 biotech companies in my area, and generate your list. And then the next day, okay, another application day, and then the next day, another LinkedIn message day, and then the next day, so you're not, keep it manageable. So that's my last, set a time frame. That's how people can actually do all of this. That's how you can do this. But I had so much fun. So thank you so much.
Me too. It's been so much fun. And thank you for that last tip with, spreading out the activities you do, dedicate time for job application, dedicate time to network and connect on LinkedIn, dedicate time to, have meetups with people, look for, IT, if you're in the IT sector, if you're in the healthcare sector, look for organizations, associations, meetups that you can join to network with people, go back again to applications, kind of spread yourself around different things, because, you never know which one's going to work, right? While you're applying and the resume is working for you in the background, you're using LinkedIn, you're doing all these things. These are things that I did, especially when I moved to Canada. I had to, go out of my way to meet people, to network with people. And that also helped me, in my journey. So thank you so much, Danielle. It's been fun having you here. And for everyone who joined us, thank you. They've sent all their thanks. People have had a great time learning from you, Danielle. So We appreciate you, and looking forward to see you, in the career mastermind, where Danielle is going to be sharing way much more with us next month.
Yeah,
Bye.
I'm looking forward to it. Bye, guys.